The dusty road stretched for miles, a black scar on the barren land. Samuel had heard whispers about the meat grinder, a settlement where the weak were culled and the strong were revered. But like any desperate survivor, he had no choice but to walk through its rusted gates, hoping for a chance to survive in a post-apocalyptic world. Broken buildings loomed like skeletal remains, their walls covered in layers of dirt and ash. The wind carried the faintest scent of decay, a reminder that civilization was dead and only the ruthless remained. As Samuel walked deeper into the heart of the town, he noticed the people, rough, weathered, and scarred. They didn't look at him with curiosity or sympathy. They looked at him like he was a prey. A man leaned against a dilapidated wall, his hand twitching near the hilt of a rusted blade. Another stood in the doorway of what looked like a butcher's shop, his smile more predatory than welcoming. It was then that he understood. This wasn't a town. It was a hunting ground. A loud horn blared, cutting through the thick silence. The gate slammed shut behind him, the sound reverberating in his chest. A figure appeared in front of him, tall and imposing, with a heavy metal mask covering his face. "Welcome to the meat grinder," he said, his voice cold and hollow. "You're here to fight for your place in this world. Do well and you might live. Fail and you'll be ground into nothing." The man led Samuel to a large arena, a pit surrounded by rows of filthy onlookers. The dirt was stained with blood, and ground slick and uneven. There were other newcomers, their eyes wide with fear, their hands shaking as they were stripped of their possessions and pushed into the center of the arena. A bell rang, and the fight began. Samuel had no choice. He lunged at the first man who came toward him, using every ounce of energy he had to disarm him. The crowd cheered, like a twisted game, a carnival of death. Blood sprayed across the ground, the smell of it mixing with the dust and decay. Samuel's pulse quickened, his body trembling with adrenaline. Every second was a battle to stay alive. The rules were simple: kill or be killed. The bell rang again, signaling the end of the first round. Samuel stood, covered in the blood of his opponent, and gasping for breath. He didn't know how much longer he could keep this up, but there was no time to rest. The man in the mask returned, his face unreadable. "You made it through, for now." For the next few days, Samuel was pushed to the brink. The fights never stopped. Each one was more brutal than the last. They threw him into arenas with weapons, with beasts, and with other survivors. The goal was always the same: outlast, outfight, outlive. The town's twisted idea of entertainment was to watch people like him claw their way through the violence, their humanity stripped away, bit by bit. Each step he took in the meat grinder felt like a countdown. He could hear the whispers in the wind, the blood-stained floors beneath his feet, and the screaming of the fallen. There was no way out. The town wasn't just a place. It was a machine, a grinding wheel that chewed people up and spit them out. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Samuel stood up at the top of the arena. He was covered in scars, his body broken and bruised, but he was still alive. He had made it through the gauntlet, and now there was no one left to fight. But as the crowd roared, he realized the true horror of the meat grinder. It wasn't the violence, it was the endless cycle of living in a dead world. Samuel knew that he was never meant to leave. The meat grinder had no end. The bell rang one final time.